Good afternoon, everyone, and especially Professor Emeritus, who is always here with us, and very early too. You are welcome, sir. We welcome our presenter of today, Dr. Taiwo Orebiyi. Is already online. You are welcome, sir. Yeah, on behalf of the Vice Chancellor of the National Open University of Nigeria, the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies welcomes everyone to this presentation. Today, this is our monthly presentation, and this is the one for the month of September. And every month we are here to say something about migration from the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Studies of the National Open University of Nigeria. I am Professor Gloria Neto, the director of the center, and I heartily welcome you to today's presentation. We are going to tell you just briefly about our center, just one or two things. We are used to just recapping every time we have this presentation. I'm sure most of you who have been here at one time or the other would have known a lot about our center. And this is the Center of Excellence in Migration and Global Study, like I said, that was established about 4 years ago with a seed fund from Third Fund at the National Open University of Nigeria. And since then, this center has remained waxing stronger and stronger on migration issues and global studies issues. And I must say that we have our own mandates in the center, which we try to address. And the first one I want to mention here is to provide leverage for field-based and solution-driven research. So research is our business, and we are very much into it, to serve as agents of national policy for migration studies, to seek grants for academic activities and outreach for sustainability, to publish and sustain peer-reviewed academic journal and monograph series. Of course, our journals are always being produced at least twice in a year, and we've already put the first one for this year out, and the second one is on its way, being ready for the end of the year. We collaborate with stakeholders in the field and policymakers. We organize occasional seminars, conferences, and public lectures. Of course, our seminars are no more occasional, but regular seminars. And of course, we are also preparing for a conference in the coming year. If you recall, early this year, we had a sensitization workshop, and that was in February. And by next February, which is February 2025, we also plan to have an international conference. And I am just saying this ahead of time so that people will started looking on to that, which by God's grace will be February 2025. Not to waste much of our time, our administrative staff will just put on the link to our journal, to our website for more information for those who would want to, know more about this center or try to assess some of our programs or activities, as the case may be. Having said that, without much waste of time, I want to go ahead to introduce our presenter for today. And it's no other than Dr. Taiwo Philip Orebiyi. Dr. Taiwo Philip Orebiyi is a senior lecturer at the Department of Peace Studies and Conflict Resolution, Faculty of Social Sciences, National Open University of Nigeria. He holds a PhD and master's degree from the University of Ibadan in Peace and Conflict Studies, and a postgraduate diploma in international relations from the Leeds City University in Ibadan, and a Bachelor of Education degree from the University of Ilorin in Educational Guidance and Counseling. I must say, at present, he is the head of Department of Peace and Conflict Department in the National Open University of Nigeria. He was the former acting director, academic planning and quality assurance unit at Southwestern University, Nigeria, and likewise a former coordinating and head of Department Peace and Peace and Development Studies programs, Salem University, Lokoja. He has over 10 years of teaching experience in Nigerian universities, including the National Open University of Nigeria. He has published extensively in reputable research outlets and universities. He belongs to the Society for Peace Studies and Practice as a full member. So I would say Dr. Rebi is quite a knowledgeable person, and we know that we are going to enjoy his presentation for today because we've been waiting anxiously to hear from this scholar, a scholar par excellence. His topic that he will be treating today is conflict dynamics in the phobia for immigrants and unrest in Europe. Yes, Dr. Rebi is a Black man. He's a full Nigerian, but he's taking us to Europe today, and we are all ready to board the plane. Over to you, Dr. Rebi. Thank you.
I want to appreciate you for the introduction. I'm grateful. I want to appreciate my Vice Chancellor, Professor Femi Peters, for providing the platform and making the whole work to be perfect and making sure that we can share our own idea on this. Thank you, Marv. Thank you, sir, Professor Olufemi Peters, our Vice Chancellor, and also many thanks to the director. I'm grateful. Today, I will be sharing my own idea and some of the my readings in and some of the searches which I've done on conflict dynamics. So my research topic today is going to be on conflict dynamics in the phobia for immigrants and unrest in Europe. And by the introduction, I hope we all know my name is Dr. Paiwo Philip Orebi, as I've been introduced. So today we'll be looking at Euro, and like what you are seeing, I think every one of us can see my screen. We could see that we could see the map. We could see that we have the continent, we have Europe, we have Africa, we also have North America and Africa. So all these are the continents that we have in the world, and globally, these are the recognized continents. But the interesting thing about this globe is that Europe is the third largest with the third largest in terms of population when you look at some of the continents in the world. And as a result of that, we could see that Europe also has can be looked into as a cosmopolitan continent. Now, moving beyond that, we could see the heterogeneous composition of Europe. So we could see the heterogeneous composition of Europe, where you see different languages. We have official languages. We have linguistics, diverse geographical compositions. All these are different compositions that we could see in Europe. We also have religions, Jews, Muslim, Christians, and other. You just have with European Union serving as the umbrella, where we have the states also coming on. Now, but when you talk of, we've been talking about the population. Euro is the third largest in terms of population. Now, beyond that, we have to look at how did we get there? How come are we having this kind of population that could also stimulate the needs for researchers to look into it? As a result of this, I try to trace the history as part of my background, try to trace the historical context of how the migration, because it was as a result of people coming in from different areas into Europe that you started seeing build up of the population. It started building up. No, now in this form, we have seen that from even the Paleolithic stage to the Mesozoic stage, and from to the Roman Empire, Middle Age, and also Industrial Revolution, we have seen each of all this. We have seen migration, people coming into Europe as a result of one thing or the other. We also see another thing that we also see is the issue of colonization, whereby those states that were colonized, we also we are also seeing them being having ties with the states that were colonized. Now, those states, you also see migration from those states that were colonized into those states that were in Europe that colonized them. Also, we also see the post World War II, whereby we see some migration also coming, like what I've said, from the former colony to Europe, and also from Africa, from the Middle East. So now, in the nutshell, we could see that there are some basic characteristics and factors that have influenced, that have led to all this. And one of it is the historical ties, which I've made mention of, that maybe the states that were colonized, those states that colonized their parents, all those ones, that also we also see economic opportunities. And that's, before I move, that will also serve as a phantom to explain the push and pull theory, which talks about the push, that some things push people from their states to other states, and some other things are pulling them into Europe. Now, take for instance, we have some of the factors pushing them. We have conflict, we have all these violence attacks, we also have poverty, we also have the search for a better living, pushing people out of their continent and also pushing them down into Europe. As a result of all this, we now see the pull factor, which are new opportunity, having a better future. These are some of the things that have accounted for the movement, the migration of people into Europe. We also see that there are also agreements. There are some agreements that were signed. For instance, the Schengen Agreement, which allow free movement between one state to another in Europe. We also have the issue of Gustavia Agreement, whereby it was signed with Togo, Morocco, and Tunisia to rebuild the economy after the war. Also, like I made mention of the conflicts also serving as the push factor, pushing people out. I mention of poverty, economic constraints, also those ones pushing people out of their states. Now, we can also see that the issue of persecution also serves as one of the push factors that makes people to leave their places to Europe. And one of the push factors is this persecution, whereby you continue to see every year, you see people talking about getting asylum. I want you to give me asylum. You see the issue of refugee, people moving as a result of things that are factors that are beyond their control, taking them out from their continent and also coming into Euro. And like I've mentioned, the issue of economic instability, political repressions, and another funny one that we also talk about is this trafficking, the illegal migration, whereby some people just migrate, they will pass through the sea, through some other doors, so that they could just enter Europe, like what we usually have through Morocco, Libya, into Italy, Spain. All these are illegal migration, where people try to search for a better life and a better. But however, as a result of all this influx, into Europe, we've discovered that, and studies have shown that we have the increase in crime, insecurity. Also, there are competitions. There are competitions between the natives and also the migrants. There are competitions which are usually seen between them. All this makes conflict to be inevitable between the migrants and also the natives. And we've seen the issue of cultural ties, whereby, like what we are all familiar. They say when you are in Rome, you behave like a Roman. Well, you see that issue where the migrants could not behave the way they're supposed to. The full integrations has not been perfected by some of the migrants coming in. Now we also see the issue of them trying to adjust, and during the process of adjusting, there are different things that comes in, even though that as the migrants are coming in, migrants also bring some benefits, like the issue of labor shortage where they comes in, they also take some menace job, try to have some other things. But the issue of security concern, terrorism crimes, and also the competition for for an economy, for the competition for resources between the migrants and the natives, and where you have the economic strains coming in. All these are issues that has led to what we refer to as anti-immigrant sentiment. All these are things that have led to what we refer to being tagged as somebody that should not be looking to the stereotypes that usually come, the discriminations that usually come for the migrant. All these have led to stereotypes. It has also led to discrimination and making conflict to be inevitable between the migrants and. So as a result of this, the objective for today, the specific objective, are to unveil the multiple causes of conflict in the phobia for migrants and unrest in Europe. Then to examine diplomatic issues of conflict and also recommend possible measures that could be used in managing the phobia. Now, before I move, let me just give a background of some of the concepts that I will be using so that every one of us, because I realize that this is a multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary center in which we have different diverse people from all walks of life listening. Now, I will be talking of when I made mention of conflict. Conflict has to do with disagreements, incompatibility in behavior. Also, beyond that, conflict dynamics. When I talk of conflict dynamic, I will be talking about conflict behavior. When I say conflict dynamics, I will be referring to conflict behavior, which we emphasize the patterns and the dimensions that usually flows with it. Also, I will also be talking about, I will be using the words maybe left wing, right wing, like in international relations with the ideologies of the left wing. The left wing, they are not hostile to the migrants, but for the right wing ideology, they are very hostile. So I will be using some of those key words in the course of the work. So the methodology that the study is premised on is a desk study research design. So in which my years of experience, I have looked into journals, books, conference proceeding reports, and others in unveiling some of the findings that I will be making reference to in the course of this discussion. Also, the main focus for now, I try to put some criteria in selecting some states like 17 states, they were purposively selected I put some criteria, those states that have witnessed, those states that have some things that has to do with conflict. So I try to put them, not that the states that were left out have not witnessed some of the conflict arising from from migration. However, this study is focusing on 17. So I will be making reference to some of the 17 states in Europe. Uh, the analysis is basically with the use of narrative analysis. I will be narrating some of the events, accounts, stories. I will be narrating them and also giving a dish into them. Now, for my own findings, after my work and studies on this topic, I discovered that multiple causes of conflict uh, in Europe that has led to all this phobia for immigrants that we are talking about. That's one of it is historical context of immigration. Another one is economic conditions like unemployment, uh, poverty, and the lack of strains in the economy of states around the world. Also, I discovered that one of the causes is policies. There are different policy coming out, migration policy coming out. Oh, it has always been a source of campaign. When you are campaigning, what did you have for the migrant? What did you have for people? What is the policy direction for migration? How is it going to be? It has always been there. So those are the multiple causes, and the rise of xenophobia, which the fear for foreigners and strangers is coming on every day. Every day, these are multiple causes of conflict. Then I also discovered that the economic anxieties, anxiety, identity issues, and sometimes social media and fear of unknown, lack of trust, all these accounted for it. Also, the issue of cultural and identity issues, like I've said, and political polarization. Like I said for far right states, we also have some people having ideologies of far right in which immigration is not you must not talk about migration. The far right in international relations, when you talk of the far right, those with ideology, they don't even want to accept people. So you also have those kind of polarization, where political polarization by the far right ideologies that usually say, okay, the issue of migration is no going area. Let our people enjoy what is there. So also for the second objective, which I stated, I discovered that border controls and migration management is one of the diplomatic issues arising from this phobia for migrants. I also discovered the issue of refugee crisis. Also, there is a disagreement as one of the diplomatic issues that I could see on Schengen areas, Schengen agreement, whereby some states did not want to, they were not happy with that agreement. Also, we also have the asylum seeker distribution, whereby some states, not all the states wants to have, or when you are trying to get people that are seeking for asylum, not all the states want to accommodate them. Some will take more. Where you see states like maybe Germany taking more, you see states like Hungary, Poland, you see them also trying to put some restriction. So we have those issues were also noted as diplomatic issues. Also, the issue of integration and assimilation. Like I've said, some of the states, you see the phobia, the fear, whereby they said, oh, before you stay here, you must learn our language. You must do this. there are contestation for how to integrate migrants into their state, leading to discrimination and xenophobia. Like we all know, there are fear for strangers, fear for foreigners. See how it is. So we also have issues like that, and also agreement, like I've said, the migration agreement, inability of some states to go with some migration agreement which are been reached into. Now, let's look at, I just want to look at those causes of conflict that I made mention of. Like I made mention of economic anxieties. For instance, we have phobia for economic strain. Like what happened, Germany usually they have a welfare package, but some people still criticize it that, that they are discouraging immigrants from seeking employment. You give them everything. You also have, even in France, their welfare package has also been criticized, whereby some said, why are you encouraging them to stay? So we also have all this uh, coming on. Now, for that of Spain, we've all seen that of Spain, where you have economic crisis, which are which has been exacerbated by unemployment rates among young people, and immigrants have been accused of taking job away from from their people, particularly in tourism and hospitality. Also, we've also seen cases like what I made mention of here in Denmark, where there have been increased pressure on essential services. There are pressures, there are things on some services where, these immigrants, they are taking some of the things that are supposed to go with them. And we move to the second one, where I talked about the historical, the cultural and historical ties. That looking at, like I've mentioned, that when you are in Rome, you behave like a Roman. When you are in you cannot be a pope more than the Catholic. You have such things like that. Okay, the issue of cultural, how did you people take the ways of life of people? Some have the fear that, these people are coming to dominate, they are coming to take things from us that are there. So all these are also, now another one that is also critical is integration of Muslim residents in European states, has also been a concern in some states. Some have the fear that, because he's a Muslim, that, they don't have their ideology doesn't go with democracy, that that the human rights may be violated. You have issues like that, and these are commonly associated with right wing ideology, in which some arguing that the native should be allowed to take possession of everything. They should, and all their blames, they believe that their cultural heritage will be destroyed based if you continue to get people from uh, uh, from the immigrant to take possession of some things. So these are some of the cases. And also I made mention of power structures. I like what I was while I was highlighting some of the multiple causes of the conflict that led to the phobia for immigrants. Now, the issue of power structure, whereby you see that every year, if you look at some of the some of the states in Europe, every year when they are trying to contest for election, the issue of migration has always been the forefront that people usually talk of. It has always been contentious. It has always been uh, leading to issues of contestation, argument, disagreement on how the political party, even though there are still some states whereby the immigrants, people that left their states for Europe, still able to contest. But all these issues, for instance, in France, you have a National Front Party has to campaign uh, talking about deporting illegal immigrants. You have cases like that in Germany. So all these are more prevalence in some of these ideologies that usually come on the basis of the contestation for power. Like also in Sweden, we also have cases like that at the immigrant platform. And these are some of the cases that I have been able to unveil in the course of my study. And generally, I also one of the one of the causes of the conflict is the insecurity. Now, the phobia for immigrants did not just happen; it also happened as a result of insecurity. Following the September, you also have the September 11 attack, 9/11 attack. You also have people also having fear. People believe that, oh, it is the migrants, it's everything. For instance, look at what happened in UK in the past few months, whereby an attack was carried out. And the next thing is people started reading meaning to it, that it must be migrants that have done this. And that led to destructions of properties, and also taking the state into another dimension of retrogression. So we have all these issues were there. And like I cited some cases like in 2020, in 2016, sexual assault in Germany were blamed on asylum seekers. Everything, they always try to look for one thing or the other. So, and I also cap it all with lack of trust and suspicion. Like in 2021, we have anti-immigrant protests in Germany, Italy, UK, which raised concern about job competition, cultural differences. Also in 2022, Hungary introduced stricter border control. Those, when you even look at states like Hungary, they are strictly about, we see them as far right states. We also have protests against immigration in France. Also, we also have, there are cases like that which have started, which are in the main paper. And to just buttress on the point on the diplomatic issue, there have been some of the diplomatic issues which I raised the other time. I said EU external border control. Now, for the EU external border control, how some states will have stringent policy. Some will allow their border to be open. So you also have issues with those states that have their border closed, states that have their border open. You also see some diplomatic crowd that usually comes arising from their generosity, and even when there are cases when there are some agreements that will limit, or so those ones are EU external border control is also another diplomatic issue that we could also talk about. And like I've said, I made mention of Schengen agreement, in which states allow other people within the European state to move from one place to another, come in from one country to another within the EU framework. However, there are still some that are still could not follow. Some did not want to even follow the agreement. So these are some of, because some believe that it will lead to the influx of refugee and influx of people just coming in. So we also have the asylum seeker distribution, like what I made mention before, that there are policies on distribution of asylum. Now, one of it is that people comes in, there are 4 states where they approach. There are 4 states of contact. Now, how will the first state of contact treat them? Then, before we can now see, okay, if there is need for distribution to other states, you have some states taking, having more asylum. For instance, in Germany, you have Germany taking more asylum, and you have some, they are very strict. They will not even take at all. So all these are diplomatic issues. Also, the issue of discrimination and xenophobia, which is majorly found in some of the states, are also there. And also we have disputes over migration agreement, like what we have talked about, stricter border control, crisis, and others. And also, another one that we can also look into is the Brexit negotiation. You know, it started in 2016 to 2019. Now, the negotiation trying to get things in order. There are UK said, oh, immigration is that they are going to put strict measures in for immigrants. Also, because of some of the agreement that the EU have also entered, the EU also tried to say, okay, let it be like this. So there are some diplomatic issues that came up as a result of even Brexit. So all these are some of the things. Also, the issue of is still part of the EU-Italy migrant deal. Uh, but let me move to where I will be rounding it off discussion. I will be explaining all on the basis of a Gatton model of conflict analysis. I will be discussing each of uh, the findings that we have talked about. And also, I will also be discussing using scapegoat model. Now, when you talk of the Gatton model of conflict analysis, Gatton talks about attitude, behavior, and context. Now, in this, it talks about the attitude. What are the attitude that they usually you are seeing? You talk of the racism, you talk of discriminative attitude that people usually put into. These are the things that are feasible that we could see. We also talk about the trauma when there are fears, and that's we also take me back to some of the phobias that we could see in the course of this discussion. One of the phobia is personal phobia, where you have the individual having phobia for foreigners, for immigrants. Also, even the immigrants too also have phobia for the people that they are staying with, because they don't know what will happen. So you have the phobia at the personal level. Also, we also have the communal phobia, which also occur based on how did they see the whole community, people migrating from these particular areas of the world, how did they see them. Also, we also have institutional phobia, like what I've said, the issue of agreements, different policy coming in on different for immigration policy coming in every day. These are institutional phobias which are introduced by different governments, making the hostility to continue and making immigrants to have some phobia that are being tailored towards them. So let's like that was just a look into. Now they were also saying, from what the Gatton is saying, is that the immigrants are seeing that they are coming from places where there are violence. They are coming from places where there are genocide. They are coming from places where you have insurgency attack, and also they are coming from places that that you have discrimination for. These are the ways immigrants see them. These are the way they see the immigrant. So what Gatton attitude behavior is saying is that all these attitudes are usually put for the immigrant, which accounted for the phobia for the immigrant, the racism, discriminative attitude, sexism, victimhood, and trauma. Also, the behavior. What Gatton is also saying that the violence being attached to them, violence is being attached to them, genocide where they came from. Oh, this is coming from Sudan, it's coming from all these. So they usually tie them to genocide, tie them to insurgency that is coming from Nigeria, where you have Boko Haram attack, discriminative. All these are part of it. Now, this leads to the context in what we are seeing. And the context that we are seeing is we are seeing the inequality. We are seeing the inequality being been uh, been coming on all the time. We see disputes. We also see disputes over territory, over resources, like what I was talking about, that we talk about the economy strain in which there are competitions, there are people see the migrants, oh, you want to take my opportunity, they want to take, and that you see people arguing that it is the migrants that are doing this, the migrants are the one doing this, the migrants are the one doing this. This phobia, you see it being enveloped almost all the phases of their life, of the people life, talking about them being the person, being the one that usually creates security breaches, all those ones. These are some of the things we see. And in that respect, I will now digress and now look at what scapegoat model talks about. Now, the scapegoat model is talking about that when there are blames, everything that happens has always been directed to the immigrant. Scapegoat model talks about the use of blame game, and it was a model from the theory that was propounded by Durkheim, a philosopher who sees scapegoat, that people are being used as scapegoats. Blames are put on people that they are the one doing this, they are the one doing this. If you see now, like the issue that happened in UK in the other time, it could also, it was just like a scapegoat where there are attributions, there are blames that are being put on people without even recourse to some of the events that actually led to it, or without recourse to some of the things that might have led to this. Without proper investigation, you have things like that. So this is what the scapegoat is talking about. That people look at people people look at others, try to put their blames. Oh, the immigrants are the one making us to be unemployed. They are the one creating security breaches. They are the one creating aggression, building a crime society. These are some of the things that we see there. Now, in conclusion, uh, causes of immigration-related conflict in Europe are, like I concluded by highlighting some of them: anxiety, cultural identity, political polarization, lack of trust, historical, and a rise in nationalism on the part of the natives. They said, okay, this is our country, we must take it, everything must be up. Also, we also have the issue of xenophobia, which has always part of them, where people talks about, okay, it's a foreigner, it's a stranger, all these issues, and all this, the blame game is being put on the immigrant for the high unemployment. The blame game is put on the immigrant for conflict over resources and opportunity. Uh, these are some of the things that have shaped the attitudes and making complexity in the conflict dynamics. Based on what I've talked about with Gatton, which talk about ABC, attitude, behavior, and the context, and also the scapegoat model. So these are some of the things that then my recommendation is that there should be a constant education and awareness program to promote tolerance, acceptance of immigrants, uh, engagement. There should be engagement between the natives and the immigrant population, and also government policies should promote integrations, like what we usually see, where some states will say you must do this, you must do this, you must learn our language, you must take some courses, you must do this, you must do this, as part of integration. These are some of the things that I've been able to unveil during the course of looking into this study. Thank you for listening. I'm grateful. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Orebiyi, for this wonderful exposition. I think I enjoyed your lecture, so thank you, well done. And you also kept to time, and I'm impressed because I was saying I will soon tell you get ready, and you actually ended the. So thank you so much. Already there are two hands that I can see up, and Professor Emeritus Sogolo, followed by Professor Akim Akiwale. And I don't know, is there any other hand? Well, so far, those are the two. So, what are you, sir, Emeritus, Professor Emeritus?
Yeah, thank you, Director. I want to congratulate Dr. Rebiyi for this very clear, lucid, presentation. The message of the presentation is clear, and throughout I was able to follow. But
Thank you,
there's
sir.
one, yes, thank you very much. There's one issue I want to raise. First of all, when you do an analysis on a particular situation, especially one that has to do with conflict resolution, there should be something peculiar to that situation, such that it becomes the lesson which you want others to learn. For instance, the one you have taken, the European case you have taken, you have not shown that there is some very peculiar message which you want to convey to the Nigerian who wants to learn from that, or the American who wants to learn from Europe, or the Australian who wants to learn from Europe. So I think that is very important. What is unique about this particular situation? That's my first point. Then the second point, which I am not too clear about, is the concept of immigrant, which you have used. The immigrant, you seem to equate an immigrant with a refugee, but not all immigrants are of that status. In other words, there are a lot of immigrants who go into countries legally and are welcome in those countries, even though you have individuals who, have issues with them. But there are others who live their normal life who are not perceived as refugees or economic immigrants or people to whom they are hostile. They may not always be hostile with immigrants. If you are a legal immigrant, for instance, who is in a country, and you're doing your legitimate work, you're not likely to suffer some of these issues that you have raised. So I was just thinking that you should have made a distinction between those categories of immigrants in the situation you have. I just noticed one thing. You talk about, I think, when you were talking about is it the Gutan or the scapegoating model, you talked about Emily Durkheim, whom you refer to as a philosopher. If he's the famous Emily Durkheim, is really more known as a sociologist. It's a great name in sociology. Rather than, but he is a philosopher, yes, but that is where he truly belongs, because he has a theory there that we all learn from. Thank you very much. But I want to congratulate you once more for this very nice, brilliant presentation.
Thank you very much, sir, for that input. Okay. Professor Akinwale, then I can see another hand. is it Professor Joshua Olusegun Bolarinwa? You can speak after Professor Akinwale. Back to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Repi. This is a very great research. Like you said, it is multidisciplinary, it is interdisciplinary, and your presentation is quite interesting. That I'm a bit, how should I put it now? So I want to advise that instead of focusing on 17 European countries, I think that's a bit too large. And I think that is also part of what Professor Emeritus Professor Sogolo is trying to call your attention to be able to establish the peculiarities and the lessons. It's important to reduce the scope so that the findings will become clearer. Okay, so you may need to think about that. And I think 1 or 2 European countries may be sufficient, because even some of these multiple causes that you mentioned, the causes of xenophobia in one country may be different from the causes of xenophobia in another country. And you made reference to that in your presentation. You mentioned situation in Germany, you mentioned France, you mentioned Denmark. These countries have different contexts in terms of the major reasons why the citizens are apprehensive. So I think you may want to consider that. Then secondly, the topic of your presentation, instead of saying phobia for immigrants, I think phobia for immigrants can be replaced with xenophobia. Instead of using those, the phobia for immigrants, that's about 4 words. Xenophobia can replace that. And I want to suggest that your title can be the dynamics of xenophobia in, just pick 1 or 2 European countries. You can say the dynamics of xenophobia in Germany. If you want to say the dynamics of xenophobia in maybe any other European country of your choice, or you want to compare to, you have a lot of data. You can just streamline your data into 1 or 2 European countries, because xenophobia itself is an expression of conflict. So once you say xenophobia, it's an expression of conflict between the insiders and outsiders. And the way this conflict is manifested or expressed is what your dynamics will now capture. So I want to suggest that for you, so that you can clearly look at, okay, what's the situation in Germany or France or Germany and Denmark and what have you, what caused it in country A, what caused it in country B, and what was the reaction of the citizens in country A and country B. And that way your data becomes the focus becomes very sharp. Then on the model that you use to discuss the findings, I want to suggest a stronger framework for you. Instead of the Galton model and the scapegoating model, I want to recommend social identity theory and relative deprivation theory. The social identity explains in-group and out-group identities, which is usually the bedrock of this xenophobia, because some people see themselves as we versus them. And this is about identity. Where people are coming from, they are coming from a background that creates in them some characteristics which differentiate them from others. So automatically, being an immigrant is an identity, and getting to a new environment, you meet other people too who see you as different, and whatever interaction that is taking place is colored by the perception of the identity and the consciousness about differences. Then the relative deprivation theory will explain the feelings of deprivation as a result of the presence of outsiders, and that can now explain the reaction that you are trying to explain. It's a function of those people feel deprived, and they now want to express a kind of frustration. They are now blaming the immigrant for their own frustration for their own deprivation, thinking that immigrants are taking away, like you said, immigrants are taking away our job, immigrants are taking away our women in case of South Africa, and so on and so forth. So I think social identity theory and relative deprivation theory will give you a stronger framework, and you can use it to replace the Galton model and the scapegoating model. So in conclusion, we look forward to, because this study is quite interesting, and this study has a potential to contribute new knowledge to the experience of immigrants in Europe. Thank you very much, and I wish you a success.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Now over to Professor Joshua Olusegun Bolarinwa.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma. Thank you for sharing this very interesting study, which has just been given to us by Dr. Rebi. Dr. Rebi, congratulations on a very well research study, and also an excellent presentation, just like previous distinguished professors have already highlighted. It's a very good study. Presently, studies or focus on studies involving migration, immigration have become a serious subject on the burner, especially for multilateral organizations, not just the EU, but also now ECOWAS is suffering from that syndrome too, and even AU as a whole. Particularly, ECOWAS is trying to do a rethinking of the free movement protocols of that 1979 in West Africa, which had also been seen as fueling and contributing to conflict. Also creating serious frustration among the ECOWAS citizens, and now leading to aggression against, so that in Ghana, against Nigerians. But that's not what I'm saying. I'm just trying to emphasize the importance of studying immigration or migration, as it is called. From your study, which is which has been well elaborated, I want to start from the historical context, then moving into the phobia context as well. Historically, the United Kingdom, the UK that you consistently mentioned and you gave as examples in your study, the Kingdom has never trusted even the EU as a whole. If you look at the attitude and the behavior of the United Kingdom, even when she was actively a member of the EU, she has never really been flexed into that EU. And you will discover that that has been exhibited in different ways before now. Historically, sir, you will know that when this European Union started as European Economic Community, before its transformation into the EU immediately after the end of the Cold War, you will know that even when the EEC started, Britain did not join the EEC until 1972. That's more than about almost 2 decades before the United Kingdom joined. That's one, lack of trust, and not even trusting ourselves and the identity. Secondly, when UK joined from that 1972, later moving from the EU becoming the European Union, you will discover that so many issues were on the burner of the EU when they just came or transformed from the EEC. One of the major issues or those frontline issues on their burner was the migration issue, identity issue, economy also as well. So moving from that, the EU began to talk about common migration policies. they started to talk about creating an identity for themselves, creating a large market for themselves, and coming and have a single personality, trying a new identity to tackle emerging global issues, problems, or let's call it generally conflict. And within that, they say, okay, we have Schengen visa as a common immigration or diplomatic issue. So Schengen visa. The UK said no. UK
Okay,
was the only.
please, Professor Joshua, you could round up. Please. Joshua, you could round up.
Okay, ma. So the UK has never respected the common immigration policy, also on the issue of currency as well. But fast forward, now, what led to these new immigration policies by these EU countries, particularly in Italy and Germany? One of it was that immediately before COVID, in northern Italy, Chinese had their flights into that place. And if you discover, you will know that the first entry of COVID-19 to Europe in large quantity was through Italy. After the COVID, because of the number of deaths, Italy began to raise its voice in the EU of changing the immigration policy. And that's why today it is very difficult for immigrants to come in. A bit difficult. They have lowered that. Again, in Germany, which had always been a bit liberal, which you mentioned in your studies, one of the major issues politically that led to Angela Merkel's party losing the election was immigration policy. Immigration policy, Germans exhibited a lot of fear, and call it fear or xenophobia, as mentioned by Prof earlier now, is that they discovered that these people were coming and they were constituting insecurity by attacking shops, supermarkets, people, creating more fear.
Okay, over to you, Dr. Reddy.
Thank you, ma'am, and thanks to our listeners and our participants today. They've really illustrated the whole work. I'm grateful to Professor Sogolo. Thank you, sir, for
Professor Sogolo.
Sogolo. I'm grateful for that, equating immigrants with refugee legality distinction between categories of immigrants. I will also put them into the work. Also from Professor Akinwale, who also made mention of bringing the scope. Thank you, sir. I will try to see how the scope could be, streamlined to some certain states so that it will address what Prof is talking about, that he wants the focus and the findings to be specific and be able to explain what actually happens in those states. I'm grateful to others, Dr. Bolanewa. Also, I'm grateful, sir. Thank you, sir. I hope to work on the whole thing and see how the theories could be adjusted. The issue of social identity theory, which talk about with us and with them. I will try to see how relative deprivations could also be used as conflict analysis tools in explaining the dynamics that's as experienced and seen in the study. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that submission. I really want to thank you. As I can see, I can't see more hands up. I'm trying to check. Okay, it looks like no more hand up. So I want to, on this note, I want to thank you very much for this wonderful presentation on conflicts dynamics in the phobia for immigrants and unrest in Europe. So I think I personally, I enjoyed every bit of it, and I do know that the conflict will ever continue. We cannot stop. It's just to know how to adapt to it. Because sometimes I believe that the conflict also show in this discrimination of color and all that. So there's a silent war. Once you are black and you are white, there's always that war there, even if you are a legal immigrant or what we call the regular migrants. So it's always there. And it's a kind of conflict because accepting you is not really full, but we have to contend with it because we went to their country to stay. So thank you so much. That's my only two observation concerning this. It will always remain. And since there's no more hand up, on this note, I want to thank you for willingly accepting to come and present on this platform. Actually, I was impressed because nobody forced Dr. Rebi. He just came on his own and was interested, and he has done his work. He brought it out for people to critique, and that is the way to go. Thank you. We would want you to work hard and make this a paper that we can review in our International Journal for Migration and Global Studies, which of course we go through serious peer review. And of course, we do not charge for you having a publication in that journal that is highly esteemed. So we'll be expecting to hear from you soon. Thank you. And I want to thank all the people who made it possible for us to have a conversation here. I can see here Emeritus Professor Dewaji, and I can see here Mrs. Ileka, Professor Okagbare, Gregory Okagbare, and so many wonderful people here on this platform. I thank you all for finding time to be part of it. And on this note, I want to say goodbye to each and every one of us till October, when we shall be coming with another interesting presentation. Thank you. God bless. Bye-bye.